working on using Google Sheets and some AI tools to help us analyze some ACAP data. I want to start by saying that this is all fake student data. It is not real, so we are not violating any student privacy by going through this video. This is a tutorial to show you some different ways that you can use Google Sheets to analyze your student data. So the first thing is we are going to import our student data. So I have some XLS files, some Excel files of student data. So I've made a new spreadsheet. We're going to go to File and Import, and then we're going to upload the data. Now, I've already uploaded this once, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to show you how to go through the Browse, and then we're going to go to wherever I had it saved, which is Downloads, and then we're going to go one at a time. So I'm going to upload Joe Lewis, and then we will go through and also upload Deborah and Chris Richardson in just a moment. And we're going to import that data. So first we're going to do just replace spreadsheet. So this first page I'm just replacing with this new spreadsheet data. And then we are going to import the next file. I'm renaming it from, instead of being sheet 1, I'm renaming it Joe Lewis. Going up, doing file, we're going to import the next one. Now this time, when we insert the page, so after we upload it, uploading Deborah, where it said replace spreadsheet before, I'm not going to just replace. So we are going to go and insert a new sheet. That's important. So I'm not just going to replace what I just imported. That would be silly. We're going to make a new sheet. So notice there's a new tab. I'm renaming it Deborah Smith. And then we're going to do this one more time. Exact same process, but instead of it being for Deborah or Joe, we're doing Chris. So uploading last time, and then doing Chris Richardson. And again, we're not creating a new spreadsheet. We are inserting a new sheet. So in this next section, we are going to work on cleaning up this data on each of these sheets, and then we will combine them after we've cleaned it up some to make one combined sheet with all of the data. So if you're an instructional coach and your job is to look at all of the data for the combined teachers to see an overall view of the school, this is going to be helpful for you. So first, let's talk about some of the things that we probably don't need when we are analyzing some student data, right? Because we really only want the important pieces. So if we title the spreadsheet with our year, we don't really need the academic year. So personally, I would remove these first few. We know our district, we know our school name. All of these forms are the same, so we don't need that, and that's really not going to affect our analysis any. And let's remove our students' data, all of their names, and again, remember this is all just some fake data. I'm going to label all of these with a fake student ID. I'm just going to put the teacher's initials. And a little tip, if you highlight what you want and you let this plus sign come up in the corner when you're over the blue dot, you can click and drag and it will keep going in that sequence. So it kept the JL and then it just changed the numbers. You know what this is, so I'm going to delete that. Okay. Let's title this 2024 ACAP ELA grade 4. Okay, so now I know this is my ELA data, so I don't need all of this. I don't need to know about the date they took the assessment, and these that are blank, I don't really need that information either. That's not helping me. So we're going to delete those, and notice it's already kind of cleaned up. So I'm going to go through and do that on the other 2 sheets, and I'll come right back. Okay, so now I've deleted the those miscellaneous unneeded columns from each page. So they all look the same. They have the same titles in the same place on each sheet. So the next thing is that we need to keep cleaning this up. So there's some things that I feel like when you're a teacher and you're looking through this, you don't need. So the standard code to me is a lot more important than like knowing this is code 1. And then if I know the standard code, I don't need the actual standard in the data when I'm going through it. That's gonna kind of mess up everything. It's gonna muddy the waters and make our sheet a lot bigger than it needs to be. Also, we are only going to be looking at the percent correct and sorting by that versus sorting by the fraction of what they got correct versus what they missed. We are only going to look at the percentages. So here's what I'm going to do, and this is what I would suggest you do. It's going to make sorting this data later a lot easier. I'm going to leave this assessment total score, and I'm going to leave these first 4 alone. But I'm going to go through first and delete all of the actual standard descriptions. I don't need those. So a little tip is if you press Control and you click the letter on it'll select that whole column. So Control and click, you can just hold Control down. And then I can select all of these at the same time and delete them at one time versus having to delete them individually. So let me go through and do this. And then you can go through and do that as well. I'm also going to, right now, while I'm deleting columns, going to delete the raw score column so that all I'm left with is just the standard code and the percent correct on that standard code. So it will look like, it'll look more like this when we get that sorted out. So I'm going to pause this video and I'm going to go through and delete all of the unnecessary columns. And then I will pick up. Okay, so all of those miscellaneous columns are deleted now. I'm now going to do one more change, and I'm going to change where it just says the percent correct. I'm going to put the standard code there instead. So I'm just going to copy and paste. And I'm going to put something like that. So it's LFP1. I'm going to put percent so that I know that's the percent that the students got on that standard. And then I'm going to delete that column. So I'm going to do that for all of these. You can see how this is cleaning it up. And actually, I think I will delete this raw score. You can always hide these, but since you have the original data downloaded, you can always go back and reference that. We just want the sheet to be easy for the analysis so that teachers can easily see the breakdown of where their students are, what percentages of standards are being hit, which ones are maybe being missed. We really want this to be an easy analysis, okay, and letting the sheet do the work. So we're going to put in some work on the front end, kind of cleaning up this data and organizing it and categorizing it a little better than it was, so that we don't have so much to look at, and at the end we'll have a nice product that is easy to use. Remember that when we're talking about data analysis and we're using a tool like Google Sheets or Excel or whatever other spreadsheet program, the goal is always for it to be easy to use, right? We want that data to mean something. We don't just want a whole bunch of stuff on a sheet that doesn't mean a whole lot, okay? Like the standard description, that doesn't mean a whole lot for my analysis. I can go look that standard up. And if you teach that grade, you know exactly what standard that is, right? You're used to seeing this code And you could probably tell me that is a phonics standard for reading, and it is the second one. Okay, and so making this easier and just less is going to help teachers really understand a lot more. So I'm going to go through and finish cleaning this up, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what we're going to do next. So now I have all of this first sheet done. I have all of my headings are correct. They're all of the standard. I'm going to format this a little bit so that it's a little easier to see, and I want this to be I'm going to call this assessment percent. Ooh, not ampersand. Percent. I want this to look like a header, and let's actually do alternating colors. This whole sheet. So a little way that you can format your data so that, or your table, is to use alternating colors, and that will this goes through 26. There we go. Something that's just a little easier to differentiate the rows. This will be covered up with conditional formatting later, but for right now while we're working, we can just make it easy for us to see and differentiate. I'm going to bold this title and center everything, and then align it in the middle. And I'm going to do that for everything. Now, all in the middle, all center aligned, all text wrapping where needed. I also like to have uppercase. There we go. Okay, so now I want this to be, I want every sheet to look like this. So now I'm going to go to Deborah, and instead of having to fix all these headings again, I'm just going to go through delete all of the columns that we didn't need. I'm going to do this on Deborah and on Chris. And then I can just copy this row and paste it on the others once I've deleted all of the unnecessary. So again, I'm going to do Control, and then all these three I'm going to delete. Because I'm deleting the standard number, I'm deleting the description, and I'm deleting the raw score. And again, if you ever need the actual data back, you are always going to have that saved on your computer, so you can always get that back. You could also duplicate the sheet. After you import it, you can make a duplicate so that you have your raw data, and you could just label it like Joe Lewis raw data. And you could protect that page so that it wouldn't get messed with. Okay. And we are almost at the end. And again, I'm using Control and then clicking that title and dragging. And then I'm going to either use two fingers to click or right click and then delete selected columns. And now all of those miscellaneous ones are gone. I'm going to go back to my first sheet. I'm going to right click and I'm going to copy. And then I'm going to go click on one and I'm going to Control V to paste. And now it is just like it was on the previous page. I also want it to look like this sheet. So I'm going to click this box in the top. I'm going to click Paint Format to copy that format. And then, okay, just kidding. That's not going to work for me today. Okay, we're going to, oh, it did work. It did work. We're all centered. We're all centered up. The only thing that did not work is the alternating colors. Let's get that back. We're going to 24. And there we go. Again, I do like when they're all nice and capitalized. It's just good formatting to me. Okay, we're going to do that one more time for Chris, so I'm going to pause this and go finish up Chris's page before we move on. Okay, so I did a little extra formatting just so I could show you all of the data in one view per sheet. So I, on these titles at the top bar, there's a text rotation. I just had the rotate 45 degrees and then added some borders between. So I selected the whole grid using that box and then used the borders and the middle borders to create this. So it's just a little cleaner so you can see everything in one go. So the last thing that we're going to do just to clean up this data and get everything in one place is we're going to make one more sheet. And we are going to put all of this on one sheet. So I'm going to start with Joe Lewis. I'm going to copy this entire range. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to do Control C. Then I'm going to go to my new sheet. And in that first box, Control V. Now it's got some formatting issues that I can clean up in just a second. Okay. For the rest of them, I'm not going to copy the header. I'm just going to copy all of the data. So I'm going to click and drag to select all that data, Control C, go back to my sheet, click the next empty box, Control V. And then for Chris Richardson, I'm going to select all of the data, Control C, back on my new sheet, go to the bottom, next empty box, Control V. So now I have all of the data for all three teachers on one sheet. It's all formatted nicely. There's no extraneous information. So when we go through and do our conditional formatting, it will be a much easier process now that we don't have all of the extraneous information. And when we need that, we can go back and reference our original. I'm going to name this combined data. I'm going to move it to the end. All right, our next section is going to be working on conditionally formatting this data. So now that we have done our conditional formatting, we could go into each student and see which standards they were struggling with. It might be helpful to be able to just group students really quickly. So what I've done is I've added a filter. So what this filter does is allows me to go into a specific standard and sort that standard from A to Z, so or by color. Now I don't want to include the total average, so I'm actually going to uncheck that average. If I don't, let me show you what happens. If I sort from A to Z, which will be from least to greatest, all of my rows stay together, but it's also going to move that average up. So I don't want it to do that. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to uncheck the average. So if you ever find that doing weird stuff, just make sure that you're not sorting that. So I'm going to go back, sort A to Z. Oh, that's still doing it. Okay. There we go. Okay, so make sure you just save. So now I don't see the actual average anymore, but I have everything sorted. So now here's my students that I really need to spend some time with. That would be their names, if you kept their names on there. Since this is being shared, and this is all fake data, but you always have to keep in mind student privacy, so maybe you have their names listed somewhere else, written down, and numbered. So I would know that those students really need the most work. My next group of small group students, and then my students that they could use something that would push them a little further past this standard. Now, we would be getting this data at the beginning of the year rather than during the actual school year. This would be helpful if you got this information on the ACAP practice data that you could go through and analyze and see exactly which areas need to be targeted. But I can do this for anything. So I'm going to, let's filter a different one. So I want to filter this A to Z. All right, and now I have sorted this whole range. And now it's undone this one. So now there are some students that didn't need any work in the previous standard, but now they do need some work. Some of them need work in both. So this student looks like he might need a lot of extra support. And that's all going to be part of your personal analysis, however you're choosing to use this. To add a filter, so let me go to a new sheet that I haven't added a filter on. Okay, I'm going to go to Data, Create Filter, and there we go. There's my filter. And I can go in, and I can filter however I want. Maybe I want to not include my average or any blanks. Okay, so now those are not part of this filtered view. They're still there. We've just taken them out of the filter. And now we can sort by this column, A to Z. And so now there's not very many people in her class that needed help on this specific standard. So this might be her 1 or 2 small groups that she would work on that standard with. Okay. So there's adding a filter. So I'm going to show you that one more time. So on this new sheet, select everything. Maybe I can select just these. Data, create a filter. So now this average, it looks like it's not going to be included. So let's try sort A to Z. Yes, so now that average stays there. So when you make a filter view, only select what you want filtered. And I even have this selected. I don't really think I need that though. So let's try that. So let's do data, remove filter. And I only want this area to have a filter. So data, create filter, sort A to Z. So now my average is staying at the bottom. Notice that the student information is still staying all connected. So if I undid that, how is it all sorted? Oh, I had already done stuff. There we go. So that's back to normal. So we can go back and go to data, remove filter, to take that all away. I think you can also do a filtered view. That's not safe. So a really cool thing that you can do with Google Sheets is you can add in views that allow you to sort data by specific columns. So what this is doing is allowing me to sort all of this data, and it is grouping my data with everything that's the same. So I have multiple students that have zeros, multiple students that have 100s. So what I can do is I have created a table, and it did all of this for me. I created a view group, and then it is sorting all of it for me. So I'm going to show you how to set this up. And what's really cool is I can change how this is sorting. So maybe I want to see everyone that needed help with their text-dependent writing. So I would choose this last standard code. And then this is the student that got a 0 on that section. These are the students that had a 30. These are the students that had a 60. And none of them had a 100. So as far as they got in this class was a 60. And so all of those students are grouped together. Now it's going to sort everything, but you're getting all of those students right together. And if their names were on here, that would give you your names for your small groups in seconds. So once all of your data is set up, it becomes really easy to use. So I'm going to go to Chris Richardson. This is just the basic data. I took the teacher name off. That's not really You don't have to take that off. I took it off Deborah's just to have a little less to look at, so it's a little less overwhelming. So I'm going to choose everything that I want to be able to sort. So I'm going to include the student ID. Again, on your personal data, when you're doing this, you could have your student names as long as you're using a protected software. Remember, we have to think about data privacy. If it's not protected, then make sure you're using some kind of non-identifiable way that you have the information, but if there was a data issue, that it wouldn't get out. So I'm going to go to data. So I've selected what I want to be able to sort. I'm going to go to create a group by view. Oh, I had added alternating colors to this sheet. You can't do that, so I'm going to go back and remove that. And I think this cannot be merged, so there we go. All right, so let's try that again. So data. I'm going to create a group. I don't have any alternate. I shouldn't have. All right, let's try that again. Always a technical difficulty somewhere. All right, let me sort by student ID. All right, so now here we are sorted by ID, so each student is in its own group. But if I want to view this by something else, now everyone with the same assessment percentage is sorted from least to greatest. Let's go back to that text-dependent writing standard. Now here's all the students have a 0. That's the last standard. So here are my students that got a 0, a 30, and a 60. So this person did really well on most of it and just has a couple of standards they need to go back and fix. So being able to sort this out, it gives you your small groups automatically. So if you had this set up already, let's say that 1 week you're doing a small group and you're working on a phonics standard 1. Okay, well now here's all of my students that I need to hit first for my phonics standard 1. Okay, these kids didn't need that. While you're working with these students, maybe you're assigning these students something that's going past just what's on the assessment, or maybe you're having them work on another standard. Like maybe they're going back and working on their text-dependent writing, or they're working on the next phonics standard. Phonics standard 2 and 3, a few kids need to work on. So this really allows you to differentiate what students are doing, and it's really quick. It took 2 or 3 clicks to get there, and now if you can save that view, you can rename this table. You just can't have any. Maybe I'll just call that small groups, and you can save that. And so now, even when let's say that I exit this. Okay, so now I'm just back to my regular data, but I can always go back and look at that specific view and sort it by whatever standard I need. So I'm not going to go through and add this to all of them, but this is going to be a really great way for you to analyze your data very quickly. So just to show you that one more time, you select where you want that table, like what information you want to sort. So notice I did not get that average at the bottom because I don't want that to move because it's referencing that certain column, and once it moves, it's going to mess with the reference. It also doesn't need to be included in the group. It's the average of the whole class. So that's all the way at the bottom. So this full class average will help you determine which standards you might want to hit first, where there's the most students who are not proficient in that standard versus like if the majority, 79% of your class is proficient in that standard, it's probably not one that you want to spend a lot of time on. But where you have this 7% proficient, that's probably a standard that you want to hit first. So that is standard LF, that's our vocabulary standard 11. So let's go through and let's sort by vocabulary standard 11. And now here's all my students who got a 0 on that. So that might be a few small groups that would need help. Only one person got a 100. So that's definitely a standard that we need to be hitting. And again, to know what that specific standard is, you can go back to your original data or you can go look it up in your own standards so that you can plan your instruction accordingly. So the last step that we want to do is we want to be able to actually use this data for planning. So let's assume that this data was from the ELA practice test. So we took this early in the year, probably around January. We got all this data back, and now you need to use it to inform your instruction for the next few months before you take the real ACAP, so that we can get our kids that final push, and the things that you're doing are targeted database instruction. So the way that all of this data is sorted makes it really easy for you to pull your groups, find what is your lowest standard. So we identified earlier that this 7% for Chris was the lowest standard. So we went through and sorted by this same standard, LFVW11. So I'm sorting by the group LFVW11, and it's making my small group. I have these students who need that help, and this one student got a 100. So now what do? We need to make a plan. So Magic School is a really great tool that you can use for lesson planning. So this is a 4th grade ELA. Okay. I copied the standard earlier, which is use commonly misused words correctly in writing. So that's my standard. And we need students are preparing for escape listing. So I need some small group instruction. And I need some activities for students to complete when they are not in my small group. So some things that are going to reinforce these standards and push them, especially for our student that was already proficient. So let's see. Please provide some small group instruction as well as activities for students to complete when not in small. Let's say this is 30 minutes of instructional time. And let's do, that was a lot of students, so let's do 3 rotations. So maybe you work with a small group of students for about 10 minutes, and then they'll rotate out to work on another activity. This is the numbers. So let's see what it comes up with. So remember, this is like an 80-20. That is what Magic School suggests, is that you use it to do about 80% of the work, and then you go back in the last 20%. You are critiquing, make sure that what they're doing is actually what they should be doing. Now, I'm personally not a 4th grade teacher, so I'm not somebody that's going to be able to go through and really critique it and say this is something that kids could do. But this would be a starting point. So if I'm wanting students to master commonly misused words, they've given me an objective, an assessment, some key points and things to go over them within small group. We've got even an opening, introducing materials, some practice for them to do, independent practice, closing, and even an extension for our student who already knows how to do this. So we're doing some commonly missed word crossword for some early finishers. And it's got the standard. So again, something you might want to go through and obviously edit, make better, use the chat bot to tweak it here and there. But overall, it's done about 80% of the work, right? It's built out this lesson plan, and then you can go in and you can do the final touches. Let's close that. Okay, so back to our data. We've gone through how to start it, how to sort it, how to clean up the data, and then how to use that data. So we're able to sort our groups for each teacher by different standards so that we are targeting students and meeting them where they are and meeting their needs. So we're using this to get good data-based instruction. If you have any further questions about how we got from that original crazy looking data to here, please feel free to shoot me an email, reach out, come down to my classroom, and I'd be happy to help you sort through your data. Happy analyzing!